All right, you might want to just drop off the call and join back in. Abimbola says DevOps engineering. That's fantastic. Fonya says data analytics. Great. So in the conversation we're going to be having today, I'm going to be breaking down these different career paths. I'm going to be explaining the nuances between, each one of them and how you can actually make your transition into the space, as well as how analytics can support your transition journey. So without further ado, let's actually get started. And I would like to start with this very interesting fact, especially because in this session, our focus is going to be on the more technical roles, which would be DevOps engineering, data engineering, and cybersecurity. And from what I see on the call, a lot of us on the call are actually interested in these roles. So in this session, we'll be looking at the DevOps engineering track, data engineering, and cybersecurity. We'll be looking at which one of these tracks might be right for you by understanding what they entail. We'll be looking at what the pathway to becoming a data engineer, DevOps engineer, or cybersecurity analyst is. And then we'll also be discussing how Analytics helps you to build work experience through our internship program. And to wrap it all up, I have a special offer. We at Analytics have a special offer that's available to everyone that's on the call right now. But in order for you to take advantage of that, you have to make sure that you stick around to the end of the conversation so that you can be part of those who who benefit from this special offer that's available to you. So let's get into this session with a very interesting fact. Over 70% of companies today use DevOps, cybersecurity, and data engineering practices in their operations. Now, this sounds like a very bold claim, but then when you look at how the market is operating today, you realize that this is very much true. A lot of institutions today rely on these professionals in order to ensure optimal operations within their organization. While we are seeing the burst of AI in the tech ecosystem, literally everywhere you turn today, you hear AI this, AI that. And it's almost like any company that does not have AI is not up to date, right? So with this global, AI mandate, it's actually creating a lot of money in, the digital ecosystem. We are seeing over $4.4 trillion being generated annually, being pumped annually into the global digital economy. And this is very much verifiable. So attached to this document is actually the link, so you can see a much more detailed breakdown of this report. And what we are seeing in the market is a cloud native infrastructure being in existence for practically every organization that exists today. Most organizations, especially after COVID, are gradually moving their infrastructure into a cloud-based platform that allows them the flexibility of being able to scale their operations and at the same time being able to compete across the national or global market. And a lot of times you see this with practically every organization today, right? Amazon, Google, Analytics, right? And practically every brand that you find across the global digital markets today has some form of cloud native infrastructure that they are operating off of. And what we are seeing is that over 95% of new digital initiatives are built on cloud native platforms. What does that mean? It means that while these organizations are existing on these cloud platforms, number one, it's creating opportunities for cloud engineers. If an organization needs to ensure that they are running smoothly on a cloud native infrastructure, then they need someone who understands this infrastructure and can help them to manage that ecosystem. And because we are seeing this number over 95%, what that means is there's a very huge, a very massive market here for cloud engineers to benefit from. At the same time, while this is creating good, it's also giving opportunity to people who might want to exploit these markets. So while it's creating opportunities for cloud engineers, at the same time, people who are on the other side, and by the other side, I mean people who want to take advantage of this as an opportunity to make money by illegal means. People who want to hack into systems, because now everything is digital. All right, you no longer need to walk into a bank before you can access all of their infrastructure and data. You could literally hack into the network of the bank, right? And so because of this cloud nature of most of the digital initiatives, it's also creating vulnerabilities within organizations. And while this is happening, these organizations need to hire experts who can also protect them against these kinds of attacks. I was having a conversation with a startup founder in Nigeria recently, and through our conversation, I asked a couple of interesting questions, and some of his responses really shook me. One of the questions I asked was, what was one of the biggest challenges that they faced as a startup, right? And now, this is not just a startup that's just starting out. This is a startup that has already gotten investments, from angel investors. They've gone through their Series A, and I think they were in their second round of funding, right? And basically, what that means is this startup has started kicking off. They have gotten people putting money, investing in the vision, and this is an organization that already has traction, already has users, and the likes of that. And I asked what was the major challenge that they faced. And in my mind, I assumed that it was going to actually be getting customers, right? Because this is just a startup, it's a novel idea and not something that already exists in the market. And the response I got was actually cyber attacks, which actually was really surprising to me, right? This person explained to me that they had faced a lot of stress tests in a quite short period of time. And what the implication was, they had to hire a cybersecurity or set up a cybersecurity team as quickly as possible, and they had to hire the best people that they could find simply to address that situation. Because you could imagine someone breaking into their systems and stealing their ideas, stealing their code, or someone breaking into their system and having access to their user data. They're going to lose investors' trust. They're going to have huge legal complications and financial complications, because now they have to face, legal implications of that cyber attack. And it's very interesting to see, because even large organizations that already exist still face these kinds of challenges. In 2024, there was a breach with a large health institution in the UK, right? And this institution, I think, was affiliated to the NHS actually, and that resulted to a loss of over £32 million. That was the financial implication of just one breach on this organization. And guess what? Just that year alone, the same organization had to invest over £1.6 million in getting things back on track. And these are very verifiable things, all right? You don't need to take my word for it, really. You can go on to Google, search about it, just search the NHS breach in 2024, and you'd actually see the detailed story. £32 million implication on a company. No company wants to lose £32 million in a year. So every organization today, especially the 95% of the market that are dependent on cloud native infrastructure, do not just need people who can manage these cloud native infrastructures, but they also need experts that can protect them against exploiters, that can protect them against certain kind of vulnerabilities in this market. And this starts to create opportunity for people who manage the data, who manage how data flows, people who manage these cloud native infrastructures, people who manage the applications and systems that run on these infrastructures, and people who protect these systems. And that's where you begin to see experts like the DevOps engineer, data engineer, and cybersecurity analysts come into play. We see the data engineering market facing a 60% global shortage in capable talent, especially with the developments in artificial intelligence. What this means is, while we are seeing developments in artificial intelligence, these AI systems actually need data to operate. So even though we are seeing this digital transformation happening in the AI ecosystem, it's actually creating more and more opportunities and not taking jobs. As much as it's taking jobs, it's actually creating more opportunities, especially for experts like the data engineer, DevOps engineer, and cybersecurity analyst. We see that DevOps is projected to have over 21% expansion as security becomes fully integrated into code. What is DevOps? It's just focused on development lifecycle and integration of development into operations of a business system. And then we see that there's a 21% expansion, and security is being embedded into how this system operates. Because while we are developing an application, while we are developing a system, developing an algorithm, we want to make sure that this algorithm is well protected. And we see rise in roles like DevSecOps, which is like a middle ground, a hybrid of cybersecurity and DevOps. With all of this, we are seeing that these roles are amongst the top in-demand jobs with strong salaries and growth. Even though they have different focuses, they have synergy between them, especially in today's digital market. And we are seeing that these roles are high in demand, they have high salaries, and are projected to continue to grow in demand. Now, I've said this a couple of times. You really do not need to take my word for it. Looking at this report, this is the Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum. And this report is released every single year. This is the most recent version. And what you are seeing here is a list of jobs that are projected to grow in demand over the next 5 years, despite the trends that we are seeing in the industry, despite the changes we are seeing due to artificial intelligence. These jobs are still in demand and are projected to increase in demand over the next 5 years. And you see roles like big data specialist, which is a role you can get into as a data engineer. We see roles like security management specialist, which is a role you can get into as a cybersecurity expert. And we even see roles like DevOps engineering, which is actually what you can get into as a DevOps engineer. There are opportunities for you in the market, and you can see that these jobs top this chart for jobs that are projected, that are currently in demand and are projected to actually grow in demand over the next 5 years, between now and 2030. So now the big question is, what exactly is happening in this industry, and how exactly can we start to position ourselves for these opportunities? Now we know that there are opportunities in this space. Now we know that DevOps engineering, cybersecurity, data engineering are hotcakes in the market. So the next question is, how exactly can we start to position ourselves for these opportunities? But even before we start talking about positioning, it's very important that you are intentional about what you are positioning yourself for. So we need to understand what is the difference between the DevOps engineer, the data engineer, and the cybersecurity analyst. What exactly do they do? What's the difference between what the data engineer does and what the DevOps engineer does? And so to break this down so that we are making more informed decisions and we are not just moving around blindly, I'm going to give a short overview of what these three experts do practically and contextually, so that we are making much more informed decisions as regards to what we want to get into. And I'm going to be starting with the DevOps engineer. I would like to start by asking a very simple question. All right. And I would really appreciate everyone's responses in the chat. I mean, this is a virtual session and I can't see you, right? Or, pick up on physical cues, but I'd very much love that everyone engages as we go through the session. So I'd like to ask a simple question. How many of us use Instagram? Just give me a thumbs up if you use the Instagram application. Just give me a thumbs up if you use the Instagram application. Fantastic, fantastic. So we have quite a number of people that use Instagram. Now, next question. How many of us have noticed the changes on the application? You've noticed that something has moved around on the application. Maybe a button moved from where it was before to somewhere else, or maybe there's a new feature on Instagram. I think now on Instagram, you can be watching a video and you can watch it at 2x speed. How many of us have noticed something like that? Give me a thumbs up. Even on Facebook, I mean, the way the interface looked 2 years ago is not the same way it looks right now. Have you noticed something like that? You just wake up one morning and there's a sudden change, or maybe you open the application earlier in the day, it looked a certain way, and then later on in the day you open the same application and it already looks different. How many of us have experienced something like that? Interesting. That's actually because there's a lot of development activities happening in the background. So while updates are being made to how the program works, while changes are being made to the algorithm of Instagram, while changes are being made to how Instagram ranks videos, how Instagram curates the kind of content that pops up on your timeline, Facebook, YouTube, and all of that. While these changes are happening, have you experienced Instagram sending a message and saying, oh, we are shutting down for 2 days so that we can upload a new feature? Have you experienced something like that? No. You just wake up one morning and you see new features rolling out. You could literally be using Instagram 1 minute, and the next minute you are seeing new features, completely new features on the Instagram application. You could literally be using Facebook 1 minute, and the next minute you see that there's a new feature on the application. That's because experts like the DevOps engineer are curating how these updates are being rolled out. While we have experts at actually developing the application itself, the DevOps engineer is responsible for making sure that changes can be rolled out on the application without disrupting the usage of the application. So what we are seeing is a global change, right? What we are seeing is a change in the actual application itself without a disruption in the usage of the application. And this is as a result of experts like the DevOps engineer. They make sure that applications are functional across systems despite changes. And the way they do this is by automating the workflow. By automating the workflow of how certain applications are being developed, how changes are being put together, and how they are embedded into the already existing application. The application still exists, the application is still available without shutting it down. New updates and changes are being embedded into these applications. And trust me, this is something that organizations need, because every single day, new changes are being rolled out, new updates are being made, all right? Because the application that runs in the background needs to adapt to changes in user behavior. If there's a predictive model, on YouTube, for example, the model that's making predictions and recommending videos to you has to be updated continuously. And that update has to be integrated into the already existing Netflix or YouTube application. And so the best way to achieve that is by adapting DevOps practices, continuous integration, continuous development. And the person responsible for managing that ecosystem, that infrastructure, is the DevOps engineer. They ensure that there's a stable and scalable delivery pipeline that allows code to move from development into the deployment environment. And by deployment environment, I mean the actual application that ends up on your devices, the actual application that you are interacting with. While you have this version on your phone, there's another version on the Instagram end that they're still working on developing. And by the time they've completed that, they actually deploy it down to your phone without stopping the version that's already on your phone. You simply get new updates and the flow continues. And so organizations today need experts to manage this lifecycle, to manage this journey. So you find people in this role usually doing things like automating software development process by building pipelines that ensure this flow is continuous without any break. They manage infrastructure as a code. What that simply means is the entire ecosystem that allows for development and deployment of applications to work. They manage that entire ecosystem using code. They monitor the performance of systems. They monitor the health of a system. The infrastructure that we currently have running, the deployed application that we have running right now, is it meeting the market need? Do we need to update what we currently have? Are we currently performing optimally, or do we see lapses? Do we see a gap between what the market demands and what our application is actually providing? And with this development comes the need for security protocols. How exactly can we protect our users? How exactly can we protect our systems? And so the DevOps engineer would be involved in quite a number of technical processes, like bash scripting using Python, working with deployment, systems like Docker, and monitoring systems like Kubernetes. And they leverage automation tools like Terraform, Jenkins, and the likes of that. Now we have an understanding of what the DevOps engineer does. But before I move on to the next road, I would like to hear from us. If you now understand what a DevOps engineer does, just go into the chat and type DevOps. Let me know those who are still with me, and those who have slept off, or those of us that have moved into the kitchen to make something to eat. Just go into the chat and type DevOps if from the conversation you now have an understanding of what a DevOps engineer does. Fantastic. Thank you, Ubong. Thank you, Ubong. Let's go on and put a response in the chat. Thank you, Michael. I'd love to hear from everyone. If you're not sure what a DevOps engineer does, from the explanation, it's not clear, just type not clear in the chat. If it makes sense to you, type DevOps. And if it's not clear, just type not clear. All right, fantastic. I think I see a number of DevOps. So it means we are paying attention and everything makes sense so far. Now we'll move on to the next role, the data engineer. The data engineer is the expert that's responsible for data pipelines. We've seen that the DevOps engineer is responsible for a form of pipeline, but the pipeline they're responsible for is the pipeline for development to deployment of applications and code, algorithms, and the likes of that. The data engineer, on the other hand, is also responsible for pipelines, but these are a different type of pipelines. The data engineer is responsible for pipelines that allow data to flow from where they are being created to where they are being stored and consumed. And across this pipeline, they also make sure that the data is restructured into a usable format. So when data is being created, especially within large organizations, data is being created from multiple sources, right? You can imagine an organization like, what organization can I use as an example now? Imagine a bank, for example, all right? Or imagine a local business somewhere around you. This business would typically track data from multiple sources. From within their stores, when someone comes to purchase something, data is going to be collected about that transaction. Oh, Jedediah walked into the store, he bought so items. This was how much he paid, and this was the date or the time when he made this purchase. At the same time, while they are tracking all of this information from their physical stores, organizations, if this organization has an online platform, they would also be tracking data from this online platform. They could have records like, oh, Elijah came on our website on XYZ date and he bought da product. He paid this amount, he took advantage of this discount, and the transaction was complete, and we collected all of this data. At the same time, they'll be keeping records of supplies to their stores. They'll be keeping records of who they are buying from, what quantity they are buying, what quantity is remaining in stock. Do we need to get more? And by in stock, we are looking at not just purchases in the store, but we are looking at online purchases as well. Have we fulfilled these purchases? Does this mean these products have been bought already and we need to restock? So while this data is being generated across multiple locations, the organization needs to make sure that there's a streamlined process for collecting everything together so that you have a comprehensive and complete data. And that way you can make more informed decisions. You don't want a situation where we have 5 products in store and 3 of them have already been ordered for online. And then we have someone walking into the store and saying they want to buy 5, and then we are selling all 5 to them. By the time the delivery person gets to the store to pick up this product for the online purchases, we are going to end up with an issue because now we are out of stock and we need to fulfill an order that someone has already paid for online. So how exactly do we streamline our processes to make sure that we don't find ourselves in conditions like that? That is where the data engineer comes in. They collect data across multiple sources. They build pipelines for which this data flows from where it's being created. And then before it gets to where it's being stored or used, they transform this data so that it's ready for usage. The data that's being created can get messy, especially because it's coming from multiple sources. And like I explained, this cuts across multiple different kinds of organizations. I give an example with a business that runs a physical and online store. You can imagine a bank, for example, and customers like you and I who are performing transactions across multiple different interfaces. You are making transactions from your mobile application. You're probably using the USSD code. You're probably using their ATMs to withdraw cash or even to perform certain transactions. You're using POS at different stores, and all of this data is being generated from different sources. In order for you to have a comprehensive, detailed bank statements, to have a comprehensive financial history of all transactions that you've done, all of this data needs to be pulled out. Because every single transaction that you have performed, contributes to that final complete, financial history. So in order to achieve that, the data engineer builds pipelines for retrieving all of this data from different sources and then transforming them into a usable format. So experts like the data analyst who needs to look into this data, perform certain analysis and have feedback that they provide to the business, needs the data to be in a specific format or structure, and they need it to be consistent. And so the data engineer is responsible for making sure that this happens. The typical deliverable is a robust data ecosystem that provides clean, structured data for data scientists, business analysts, and data analysts to use. So the typical role of a data engineer would entail, building pipelines, ETL, ELT pipelines that move data from various sources, from where they're being created to where they're being stored and used. They also design and manage cloud warehouses. So platforms like BigQuery, Amazon, AWS, Snowflake, GCP, and the likes of that. You find people in data engineering actually managing cloud infrastructures like this. You also find them writing code primarily in Python because, in my opinion, that's the most robust programming language that you could use in managing data. So they also are involved in writing Python code as well as SQL because they're interacting with databases. They ensure data is quality, it's reliable, and is secure within that ecosystem. And this is the kind of work that you typically find the data engineer doing. So far, we've looked at DevOps and we've responded that we understand what a DevOps engineer does. Now we've looked at the data engineer. Go on to the chat and simply type data engineer if this makes sense to you. If now you understand what a data engineer does, just go into the chat and type data engineer. I'd absolutely love to hear from everyone. Just go into the chat and type data engineer. Fantastic. Thank you, Oluwasegun. Thank you, Ubong. Okay, Eve says repeat, please. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. A data engineer is responsible for making sure that data moves from where it's being created to where it is being stored and consumed. So a data engineer does not analyze data. They simply move data from one place to the other. And while they are moving this data, they make sure that it is transformed and ready to be analyzed. So experts like the data analysts, the data scientists, the business analysts, these are the professionals that use data. But before they use it, they need the data to be in a specific format and structure. And it is the data engineer that's responsible for supplying them with that data, one, and also making sure that by the time the data gets to these experts, it's structured in a way that they can actually use it. This data typically comes from multiple sources, so they need to streamline everything from all of these sources and ensure that there's a pipeline and a flow, a system around how this data moves down to where it's being used. All right, fantastic. So now we have an understanding of what a data engineer does, and so we'll be moving on to cybersecurity. A cybersecurity expert is the one focused on protecting these systems and digital assets. So while the DevOps engineer is responsible for managing how deployment is being done, when an application is being developed, they manage how this application is being, or these updates are being integrated into the already existing applications without disrupting the current flow. The data engineer is also responsible for making sure that data flows, right? And then the data that these applications need in order to perform their activities are actually being supplied to them. The cybersecurity expert is responsible for protecting all of these systems. The infrastructure and data and models and code and applications that the DevOps engineer is responsible for managing needs to be protected. You can imagine someone coming up with a novel idea. I shared my friend, the tech startup founder in Nigeria, whose system is constantly being, tested, stress tested by, different exploiters, different hackers that are trying to break into their systems. Of course, they need to protect this because they have a novel idea. And this is something that's proven to work. And investors are already pumping in millions and billions of naira into this idea. So of course, they need to make sure that no one else gets access to their code or into their system and infrastructure and takes advantage of that or makes a mess of it. At the same time, this system needs data in order to be operational. Practically every AI system today that you hear about relies on data heavily in order to make any kind of decision, in order to learn, understand patterns, not just in human behavior, but in market trends and changes. The responses that ChatGPT is giving to you, it did not come up with those responses, right? It's sourced for those responses from the millions of data that it's able to find on the internet. And so what that means is every single AI system you see today relies on data. And in order for them to perform their work optimally, they need data engineers to move the data from where it's being created to where these systems exist in order to get their work done. And within this entire ecosystem, the data that's being generated and moved in order to get the systems to work, as well as the existing system itself, the infrastructure, the application, needs to be protected. And that is where the cybersecurity experts come in. They make sure that the entire system is being protected and no one can actually break in and exploit this system. So you typically find them doing things like, applying resilient technology and being proactive anticipating different kinds of cyber attacks and putting up systems in place to, prevent them or address them when they eventually happen. They want to make sure that if at all there's a breach, it ends up with very minimal disruption to the already existing system, and it ends up with very minimal complications on the business. I shared an example with the healthcare brand that was breached in 2024. Over 32 million pounds went down the drain because of one breach. Over 32 million pounds went down the drain because of one breach. You can imagine if another one happens in the same year, right? That would mean huge financial implications against the business. That would mean, lots of, legal complications for the business as well. So of course, a business like this needs to make sure that they are well protected. And it doesn't just happen in the tech space. I mean, I give an example with the tech founder, and this is an example with a healthcare brand, a healthcare organization. It happens in the banking sector, all right? It happens in financial services, all right? So all of these industries are cloud native. Based on what we have seen, 95% of these of these organizations are cloud native. And all of their systems rely heavily on data. So the data, the code, the infrastructure, and everything that allows the business to run successfully needs to be protected. And that's where the cybersecurity experts comes in. And some of the responsibilities of cybersecurity experts would be identifying, assessing, and remediating security vulnerabilities. So they need to be able to identify what areas are we vulnerable, what areas are we likely to face an attack from, and what actions do we need to take in order to protect ourselves against these forms of vulnerabilities. They are responsible for implementing security control, security measures, putting up firewalls, endpoint protection, AIM, encryption of their systems. Every kind of communication that's happening within the ecosystem of an organization needs to be well protected, well encrypted, right? The network within a particular organization needs to be well protected to make sure that there's no breach when data is being transferred from one point to the next. They also monitor security events. When any kind of threat is being detected, they have to make sure that they immediately address it. They conduct risk assessments. What are the areas that we are likely going to be vulnerable, right? What are the areas that we stand a risk of being, hacked from, that we stand a risk of being exploited from? They conduct penetration testing to actually test their own systems to see, how well or how strong is our current security protocol, and what do we need to update? What do we need to improve upon? They embed security best practices into systems and the development lifecycle within an organization. And I'm sure most of us would have had some level of interaction with cybersecurity analysts. If you've had to go through a cybersecurity test at work, just give me a thumbs up. That boring long course where they taught you not to click on random links that come into your email and stuff like that. If you've had to go through a cybersecurity test at your organization or a cybersecurity training in one way, shape, or form or the other, fantastic. So we see that even the organization you work in employs some level of cybersecurity. And what that implies is, even within the organization you're working in right now, there are opportunities for you to make a transition from whatever department you're currently in into the cybersecurity space, which most likely comes with more flexibility of work and a better pay. So if this is something you are interested in doing, if cybersecurity is something you're interested in getting into, you are absolutely on the right track as well. Now, for the final part, I would like to hear from us. If we now have an understanding of what a cybersecurity expert does, just go into the chat and type cybersecurity. Just go into the chat and type cybersecurity. If this makes sense to you, what a cybersecurity expert does. Thank you to Lope, thank you, Sheyi, Jumi, Ubong, fantastic. Adekumbi, fantastic. So now we have an understanding of what these different tech roles entail. And now to the big question: how can I become a cybersecurity expert? How can I get a job in cybersecurity? How can I get started working in this tech spaces? How can I get into DevOps engineering? This is the $1,000,000 question. Yeah, Shay's already asking one of them. What course do I need to take if I want to become a cybersecurity analyst? That is what we'll be breaking down right now. While there are opportunities in these spaces, knowing these concepts is not enough to get you hired. If you know cybersecurity, you learn the technical skills, you know about DevOps, you learn the tools. It's not enough to actually get you hired. You need to learn, yes, you need to learn these skills, and you need to learn the right way. And then you need to package it, everything that you've learned, and then actually apply to jobs. And that's what eventually lands to you getting your very first role in this space. So how exactly do you learn? We'll talk about that. You need to learn the skill. You need to learn the technical skills as well as the employability skills. You also need to ensure that you package everything you've learned. How do you package? You make sure you have a CV that positions you well enough for these opportunities. You need to make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile that portrays you as a cybersecurity expert. Because there are lots of opportunities, like I've explained to us. And if you are leveraging a platform like LinkedIn, recruiters will literally be reaching out to you without you even needing to apply, once you have your LinkedIn profile optimized. And I'm not just telling you this, I have personally experienced this. Right? I've literally had offers that came my way, as a matter of fact, from international organizations through LinkedIn without me needing to apply. So yes, there are opportunities for you when you are able to optimize your LinkedIn profile. When you build a portfolio, this is very vital to you securing a job. When you have the right kind of mentorship, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially people who are going the route of being self-taught. People who are just watching YouTube videos and taking random courses on Coursera or the likes of that. While these courses are very effective, they are very good. They help you to build the knowledge and technical skills. You need mentorship so that you have direction as to how can I navigate this? What kind of mistakes? What are the common mistakes that starters or newbies tend to make? And how can I navigate? How can I avoid these mistakes? How can I get ahead of the crowd? Mentorship helps you to escape some of these traps, because now you are speaking with someone who has experienced this already. And they're giving you guidance. They're telling you, oh, this is what you should do. Instead of doing this, do this instead. This is the best, track. This is the best thing you should do based on, what your goals are. You also need to be well prepared for the interview. For a lot of us, this would most likely be our first exposure to this tech space. And whatever interview we end up getting, it's most likely going to be our very first interview for DevOps engineering, cybersecurity, or whatnot. So we need to know exactly what to expect and how to actually scale through these interviews. And that's why you need interview preparation. You need job references, someone who can vouch for you and say, oh, I know this person, I've seen their work, and I can vouch for them that they can actually get things done for you. And after all of this, you need to make sure that you're actually applying. You need to apply in mass, and at the same time, you need to make sure that you're sending out quality applications. You don't want to send out a generic CV. Trust me, before any recruiter sees your CV, especially in today's day and age, it passes through AI first. So how do you actually pass through that AI check and make sure that it actually gets to an actual human being and you actually get invited for an interview? How do you send out quality applications that can scale through ATS and actually get you an interview? All of these are very vital in your application and in helping you to land a job. You might know these things, but if your CV does not get you into an interview, you would actually not get the job. So how exactly do you ensure that your CV is well tailored for the role you're trying to get into and you actually land the job? Now, what we've seen over the years is that while there are opportunities in the market, a lot of people do not prepare themselves well enough. A lot of people are not well positioned for these opportunities. And I'm telling you this for a fact, as someone who has been on both sides of an interview, someone who has been on the side of, being interviewed. I'm the one being asked the questions. I'm answering the questions in order to get into a role. And I've been on the flip side, being the one, interviewing other people, asking the questions. And when you go through these interviews, there are specific kinds of questions that are being asked, and there are specific kinds of answers that these recruiters expect. So how exactly do you know these answers? How exactly do you position yourself for these interviews? There are two major things that every single recruiter, every single person that's hiring, there are two major things that they always look out for. Number one is the skill itself. If we need you to be a data engineer, we need you to have data engineering skills, right? We need you to know Python. We need you to know how to build, data pipelines, ETL, ELT, and the likes of that. If we need you to be a, DevOps engineer, we need you to know CI/CD. We need you to be able to work with APIs. We need you to be able to work with Kubernetes, Docker, and the likes of that. If we need you to be a cybersecurity expert, depending on whatever specialization it is, we need you to know GCP. We need you to know, network security. We need you to know, GRC and the likes of that. So you need the skills. That's one very important thing. And the second thing you need is experience. We need to have tangible proof that you have done this thing before. I give an example with the health institution that had to, spend over 32 million after a breach. That organization would not be spending, I mentioned that they spent over 1.6 million setting up their cybersecurity infrastructure. They will not be spending that money on someone that they are not sure of. They will not be spending that much money on someone that they cannot trust to protect their, ecosystem. They just spent close to 35 million pounds in 1 year. Right? And that was not invested into the business. That was in addressing one breach. They will not be spending that much money if they're not getting the best talent. So how exactly can you prove to them that you are the best person and you can solve this specific problem that they're facing? You have to show proof. And one way you can do that is by showing experience. Now you note that I did not add certification here. And that's one major, blocker that a lot of people have, especially when getting into the tech space. While getting a certificate is great, is good, having a certificate is secondary when it comes to securing a job, especially in the tech space. The two primary things that every recruiter is looking out for is number one, the skill, and number two, experience in the space. So how exactly do you build these things? Number one, you have to learn in order to acquire the skill. And you have to make sure that you are learning in a project-based environment. In the tech space, generally, we have a mantra. You learn by doing. And the best way to learn is by actually getting the work done. So while you are learning about data engineering, you're actually doing it. You are writing Python scripts. You are building ETL pipelines. You're building ELT pipelines. And Analytics is designed to help you achieve just that. We have bit-sized learning materials that you get to watch, bit-sized videos that you get to watch at your own pace. At the same time, we also have instructor-led live classes where you're having a live session like this, interacting with an actual professional who is guiding you through that journey. This allows you to have maximum flexibility while at the same time getting maximum support from an expert that's already working in the industry and has experienced this transition you're experiencing right now and can guide you towards the right direction and help you to avoid some of the common mistakes that people tend to make. So the best way to position yourself for opportunities is actually, number one, to learn in a project-based environment where you're constantly working on projects that you end up having in your portfolio. And that brings us to the second thing. I mentioned there are two things that everyone needs: skills and What's the second thing? Go on to type that in the chat. Let's go on to type that in the chat. What's the second thing that I said every recruiter wants you to have? Skills. And what's the second thing? Thank you, Ubong. Experience. Besides having the skills, you need experience. But when it comes to the skills, even having the technical skills is not enough to get you a job. You still need employability skills, which are some of the things I mentioned earlier. You need a CV that's well structured, and Analytics will help you to work on that. You need a LinkedIn profile that positions you well for opportunities. Analytics would guide you through optimizing your LinkedIn profile to position yourself for opportunities. We heard the testimonial earlier at the beginning of the session, where God shared how, opportunities literally came his way through LinkedIn, how he was able to secure his very first interview 5 months into the program. What that means is before he actually completed the program, he already got an interview for a data engineering role and he secured his job. He shared how he went through the interview preparation session with Analytics, which is simply a one-on-one session with a recruitment expert that's guiding you through what kind of questions to expect during an interview and how to answer these questions correctly. Now, eventually when you get the role and you need a reference letter, someone to vouch for you, you can actually ask for that from Analytics and we make that available. We also provide on-the-job support. So even after you've gotten the job and you need someone to, just get you settled into the role, within the first 30, 60 days of getting a new job, you need to understand how the market will run, especially for most of us who are just getting into the space, and this will most likely be our very first role. So we have on-the-job support to guide you through this. We have weekly mentorship session throughout the period of your learning, and then there's Upwork optimization. So if you decide, oh, I don't want to work for a full-time company, I simply want to work freelance, work on specific projects, work on contracts, get paid, and then I move on. Would actually be training you on how you can leverage Upwork in order to do that. So all of this helps you to build not just the technical skills, but the employability skills that you need to land the job. And the second thing, which is experience. You need to make sure that you have expert experience in this space, and then you have tangible proof of these experience. And so if I walk up to you today and I tell you, I am Jedidiah, I'm a data engineer, or I'm a data scientist, I'm a machine learning engineer, I'm an AI engineer, there's proof. I'm not just saying it. You don't just hear Jedidiah say, oh, he's a data scientist, and it ends there. You can literally Google Jedidiah, and the first thing that's most likely going to pop up is data science. Right? You could literally Google my name right now, and the first thing that's most likely going to pop up is data science. So how exactly do you show such tangible evidence in your field of, or in your domain of expertise? Because while you're training, you're becoming an expert at data engineering, cybersecurity, DevOps. So how exactly do you position yourself? One thing you can do is to have a portfolio that serves as proof of competence. So when you ask Jedidiah, I need you to come and build this AI system for me within my organization, we need a chatbot or we need whatever. I'm not just telling you that I know these things. I can show you examples of projects that I have worked on before. And I can ask you, is this what you're expecting me to do? Is there any tiny changes that you need me to make? And I can tailor it to your business. Why? And you can trust me more to get this done for you. Why? Because I'm not just saying it anymore. I'm showing you practical examples of what I've done. So how exactly do you, who is trying to get into this space, actually showcase your work? Analytics, by design, is guiding you towards working on projects. You're working in a project-based environment. So every single live class that you walk into, you're working on a practical project that gets added to your portfolio. And throughout your learning period, you are actually working on projects. At the end of your training, you also get a 2-month period of internship with our partner organization, where you're also building more work experience. So remember that internship I spoke about at the beginning? This is it. You'll be working with our partner organization, Amidari, where you're working on more projects that get added to your portfolio and get to reflect on your CV and LinkedIn profile. So at the end of your entire experience with us, You would have both Tenalytics and Amedari reflecting on your CV, your LinkedIn profile, and other platforms as organizations where you've actually practically worked on projects in cybersecurity, DevOps engineering, and data engineering. And you get to showcase all of the work that you have done in these spaces. So here we get to see a breakdown of what you are actually going to cover on each one of those programs. On the cybersecurity program, for example, we take you through tools like Wireshark, VMware, Metasploit, Kali, Zap, and the likes of that. And this is a breakdown of everything that you're going to cover in the program. Now, as much as within the cybersecurity space, there are specializations that you could focus on, we have ensured that the program is robust enough to give you access to allow you to have multiple entry points into the cybersecurity space. And so your training would allow you access to break into 4 major entry points in the cybersecurity space. And these entry points would include network security, which is one cybersecurity specialization. You'll also be looking into GRC, which is another cybersecurity specialization. Would cover penetration testing, which is another cybersecurity specialization, and SOC analytics. So at the end of your training, you have multiple entry points into the into the cybersecurity space. And you'd see the course structure, information security principles, introduction to network security, SOC roles and responsibilities, log analysis, threat detection, open source intelligence, malware analysis, penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, exploitation, governance, compliance frameworks, GRC, all right? Compliance audits, policy development, security awareness training and reporting. These are all of the things that you'll be learning. And the program is structured so you have multiple entry points. And it's defined in such a way that you learn from one specialization onto the next one. And by the end of your training, you would have 4 different specializations that you can move into while getting into the cybersecurity space. And I can tell you for a fact, this comes with its own advantage, all right? Getting into space, now you have an understanding, and like my colleague likes to say, no one can come and bobo you. You have multiple entry points into the space, and you can, tap into any one of the opportunities that comes your way. While at the same time, you understand how the entire ecosystem works. Today, I can operate in DevOps or MLOps positions because of the level of experience and exposure and knowledge that I have. I can get into AI engineering. I can focus in machine learning. And even in machine learning, there are different aspects that I can branch into. At the beginning of the year, I got an opportunity from a major bank in Nigeria. And this organization literally reached out to me, right? And it was an offer for a specific task that they needed me to do. But after looking at the description of what they actually requested, I realized that the description that they actually tagged for that request is completely different from what they actually needed me to do. But because I already had the skills for what they needed me to do, I was able to negotiate for what they were willing to pay. I was able to negotiate for 2 times what they were willing to pay. And the reason this was possible was simply because I had these multiple entry points, and because I actually understood the data ecosystem through and through. And that's the same advantage you get to enjoy on the cybersecurity program. You have multiple entry points into cybersecurity, and as you further in your career, you can pick any one of these roles to specialize in. But essentially, you can pick anyone. Now, on the DevOps engineering track, you'd actually be learning about things like Linux, Shell, Git and GitHub for managing workflows, CI/CD pipelines, unit testing, all right? Building and managing Docker images, right? Containerizing applications and deploying these applications, ensuring that they can work optimally on different kinds of systems. You'll be covering things like Python, Linux, AWS, cloud infrastructure, Git, GitHub, Jenkins, Kubernetes, and the likes of that. And all of this will be covered during the period of your training. And the same applies to the data engineering track. Here you'll be learning about data engineering, you'll be learning about SQL because you'll be interacting with databases heavily. You'd understand how to build data pipelines, ETL, ELT, how to work with APIs to scrape data, how to work with big data tools like Apache Spark, Apache Airflow, and even cloud platforms like GCP and Azure. All of this is what is covered in the data engineering program. And like I said, we are designing this with very much intention to make sure that your career transition journey is seamless and smooth. Now, before I move any further, I would like to hear from every single person on the call, every single person right now on the call. From AA, Abimbola, Adekumbi, Alvin, Bilal, Charles, Chris, Eunice, Eve, Fonya, Jimmy, Jumi, Lucky, Luke, Malkiel, MD, Michael, Oluwasegun, Oluwadamilola, Philip, Sam. There are a lot of people. Sam, Sandra, Shei, Tululope, Tope, Uber. I would like to hear from every single person on the call. So far through the conversation, which one of these tracks do you see yourself getting into? Which one of these tracks do you feel is the right fit for you and the one you should actually get into? I would like to hear from every one of us. Just go into the chat and type that out. Chris says cybersecurity. Fantastic. Jimmy says cybersecurity. That's interesting. It seems like the cybersecurity experts are taking the lead in the conversation today. Cybersecurity Luke, cybersecurity AA, Adekumbi, cybersecurity, Abimbola, DevOps. Interesting. Abimbola, DevOps. That's interesting. Let's keep them coming in. Which one of those roles do you see yourself getting into? Cybersecurity for Luke. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. You can get started today by joining our next cohort that starts on the 11th of April. So while we are enrolling you into the program, while you are getting started into the program, you can actually get started on the 11th of April, starting out your journey into DevOps engineering, data security analytics, cybersecurity. And guess what? There are special benefits that you get to enjoy. Besides the technical training itself and the employability services, which we already covered, there are extra incentives that you actually get to access by enrolling for the program. Number one, you get access to the Founder Circle. Here you get, professional guidance on how to build a personalized career roadmap. This is where we are working with you one-on-one to help you streamline what your career transition should look like. So if you are interested in getting into cybersecurity, we have a conversation around which one of these specializations should you focus on. As you progress, how do you source for jobs? And what kind of certification should you be aiming for? How should your career trajectory look like as you go through this navigation? You also immediately start having access to mentorship. So once you get enrolled for the program, you immediately start being able to access the mentorship that's available from Tenalytics. This is a weekly engagement, a weekly interaction that we have with all of our students. But for you who is on this call, you start having access to it immediately before the 11th of April when your learning actually starts. You get to leverage from interview simulation sessions where you get to understand what actually happens in an interview from both perspectives, right? Who is interviewing and who is being interviewed. What exactly the recruiters are expecting you to say when they ask you specific kinds of questions. You also get to leverage, the alternative UK visa pathway session. This is a, exclusive session, and you get to gain access to this once you get enrolled to the program. Not everyone has access to this, all right? So it's a unique and special incentive that you get to take advantage of once you sign up for the program today. And the extra benefit is you immediately have access to all of these benefits And you have lifetime access to things like interview preparation, reference letters, and mentorship from Analytics. But that's not where all of the benefits end. You've seen how you are going to be learning in a very detailed and structured environment. You've seen how you could learn from, experts, industry experts. You've seen the depth of what you're going to be learning on the program. You've also seen the employability services that you get to benefit from, as well as the extra incentives that you get to enjoy. The juiciest part of all of this is the fact that we are currently allowing you to, there's currently a discount to all of these benefits. So you are enjoying all of these benefits at a fixed price of $600 instead of the full price of $1,200. We're currently running a 50% discount, and this gives you access to all of these incentives and all of these benefits at a discounted amount. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for you? You still have access to employability, you still have access to the technical training, and you still have access to all of these incentives, which we just discussed, and you'd be paying only half the price. And that's not the sweetest part. You do not need the full $600 to actually get started. With only $200, you can actually lock down your slot for the discount and start enjoying those benefits that I mentioned you immediately have access to. The career transition roadmap and the mentorship, which you immediately start having access to. You do not need to pay the full price. You only need to pay $200 right now, and you immediately start having access to all of this. You get to spread out the $600 into 3 months of installments. You pay $200 now, and in the following month you pay another $200, and in the following month you pay the next $200, and you'll be good. Now, Jumi is asking, what about certifications? I explained earlier during the conversation that a lot of technical recruiters are not so focused on certification, but rather they really want to see you have the skills and experience. Now, that is not to neglect the role that having a certificate plays. And how we have structured this within Analytics is to make sure that you have all-round the support that you need. So at the end of your training, you'd actually be getting a certificate from Analytics, and the certificate you are getting is one that has been accredited by the American Council of Trainings and Development. So this is a governing body in the US, and you'd actually be getting a certification from this governing body in the United States of America, and this certification is accredited and accepted across different zones. So while you go through your training, you'd actually be getting a certification at the end of your training. And it could be as clarity between USD or Canadian dollars. This is in USD. Right, so what I want to do is actually to go on to share the screen and walk you through how you can make payments, while my colleagues will be sharing the payment link in the chat. Right? So what you want to do is simply to go on, click on the payment link, and then you can walk through this process. As we go through this process, you get to see what the different payment options are, as well as what the nuances in the price is across different currencies. So Adekunbi, I'm assuming you would like to pay in Canadian dollars. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and just walking you through how you can get enrolled for the program and how you can make payments to get started. What you want to do is to click on the link that my colleague is sharing right now in the chat. Right? And once you click on that link, it should bring you up to the page that I'm sharing right now on my screen. Now, for every one of us that has a question, you can go on to use the raise hand gesture, and I'll be coming back around to answer every single question, or at least most of the questions that I can for today's session. All right, you can as well drop your questions in the chat, and I'll be sure to look at them and respond to them. What you want to do right now, so that you take advantage of the incentives as well as the discount and installmental payments, you want to click on the link that my colleague is sharing in the chat, and that brings you up to the page that I'm currently sharing on my screen. You want to scroll down and locate the specific track that you're interested in. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, you want to click on cybersecurity. If you're interested in data engineering, you want to go over to data engineering. And if it's DevOps engineering, you want to go over to DevOps engineering. For the purpose of this session, I'm simply going to go on to DevOps engineering. And once you click on it, it brings you on to the next page, which gives you a detailed breakdown of what the program enrolls. Once you're here, what you want to do is click on the button that says Enroll Now. And before you click on it, you look at something at the left corner over here. You see where it says 11 slots left. That's because while we have this discount running, there are a limited number of slots available for you to sign in and take advantage of this 50% discount. So even though we have a 50% discount left, once these slots are filled out, it goes back to the full price. So if you really want to take advantage of this and the incentives as well as all of the services that you get to enjoy, I'd really recommend you going on to, make that first initial payment so that you can secure your slot for this discount as well as all of the benefits that come with it. So what you want to do is click on the button that says Enroll Now, and that takes you on to the payment gateway, right? Now, for you, you might be seeing, a gateway that asks you to provide certain details about yourself, your email address, phone number. All of that is necessary so that we just create a profile for you on our platform and give you access to the learning materials. So just going to provide those details and then go on to the next page, which is the payment gateway. And here you get to see the payment options. Like I said, the full price is $1,200. Well, the 50% discount, you'll only be paying $600. And you'll be saving up to $600 in your account. And you do not need to pay $600 in full. You can break this down into 3 months of installments, make your very first installment today of only $200 and get started on your transition journey. Now, if you'd like to pay in pounds or some other currency, if you look at this corner here, you'd see a drop down there. You can simply click on this and select whichever one of the other currencies you'd like to pay in. So if you're paying in Canadian dollars, you simply select CAD and you see the price breakdown. All right. If you're paying in pounds, you also see the price breakdown. So the full price is £919.2, but the half of that will be $459.6. And all you need today in order to get started, in order to unlock all of these benefits and start enjoying all benefits of the program, starting with the mentorship and guidance on how to navigate your transition, is to pay a minimal amount of £153.2. This gives you immediate access to, your to the Tenalytics platform and the benefits and incentives that comes with it. What you want to do is going to select the payment plans that works best for you, and then simply scroll down and check these 2 boxes. Now, there's an additional advantage you can do. You can actually adjust the dates that you get debited next. Because you're making payments right now for the April cohort, the next debit is going to come up on the 14th of April, the next time you get debited. The payment is automated and it automatically happens 1 month after your initial payment. But in order to give you a bit more flexibility, you can actually come here and click on this button that says Change Date. So once you click on it, you actually see that you have the flexibility to adjust your next payment to come up all the way up to 1 month into your training. So you have all the way up to the 11th of May before your next payments come through. So if you get paid on, the 30th of April, you could say, okay, I want the next payment to be debited on the 1st of May. And once you set that up, you can simply click on Save. But basically, you have all the way to 1 month after your program actually starts, after your learning actually starts, which will be the 11th of May. So your program starts on the 11th of April, and you have all the way to the 11th of May to select when your next payment comes through. Once you're able to select the dates that works best for you, say you get paid on the 30th and you want the debit to be on the 1st of May, set that up and click on Save. And once you're done, you can go on to click on the button that says Pay Now. And once you do that, simply confirm the details which you provided earlier and go on to click on the button to Pay Now. You can go on to select whatever payment option works best for you and go on to secure your slot for the next cohort. Now I'm coming back to the call and I would like to take questions. If there's anything you would like me to clarify for you, maybe you were confused between any two of the roles, or there's anything that you like for me to answer for you, right? Just go on to use the raise hand gesture. I'll be calling out names and responding to these questions. In the meantime, I would really encourage you to go on to make your payments so you take advantage of the 11 slots that we have available. I mean, we have over 22 people right now on the call. What that means is these 11 slots for DevOps engineering. I mean, not everyone is going for DevOps. So those of us that are interested in DevOps, you want to go on to secure a slot. And those of us that are interested in cybersecurity, you want to go on to secure a slot as well. All right. So while we are doing that, I'm simply going to take Shei's question. And if you have any questions as well, you can either drop in the chat or use the raise hand gesture. Okay. Hello, Shei.
Yeah, good evening. Please, I want to ask, I want to be a data security analyst. Currently, I'm doing data analytics. So since it's a mixture of, I think it's a mixture of cybersecurity and data analytics. So which one do I go for first and how do I go about it? Then my second question is, currently I'm working, I'm very busy. So is this program flexible? Like, can I do it at my own pace? Thank you.
All right. So to the first question, you want to get into data security analytics. The data engineer is not exactly responsible for security. They're responsible for transport and transformation. So data moves from point A to point B. That's what they handle. And before data gets to point B, it has to be transformed into a usable format. That's what the data engineer does. The cybersecurity analyst is the one that's responsible for protecting that data while it moves from point A to point B. Now, sometimes there's an intersection between these roles, but if you're really interested in data security, and that's what you want to really get into, then leveraging your already existing data background, getting into cybersecurity would be the right option for you. Now, on the second question around flexibility, I think before I answer that question, let me confirm if what I just explained makes sense to you.
Yes, yes. So I should
All right.
continue with data first, right? And
Yeah.
move to
So you
cybersecurity.
cybersecurity. Yeah. So what
Okay.
you want to do is actually enroll for cybersecurity.
Okay.
All right. So that's one. And then concerning flexibility, yes. I explained to us that you have bit-sized videos that you get to consume at your own pace. All right. So what that means is you have the flexibility to decide, oh, I have 10 videos to watch. I want to watch 5 videos today. Tomorrow I watch another 5 and I'm done watching these videos. I've completed this, part of what I need to cover. By, the subsequent time, another set of videos are released. You can break it down based on your schedule, right? You can decide, oh, I'm going to watch 2 videos a day. And in 5 days, I'm done watching all of the videos. So whatever structure, whatever system, whatever, timetable works best for you, you have that flexibility. Now, at the same time, I also mentioned that we have live instructor-led classes. And these are classes that are happening on Saturdays. And they're also happening on alternating Saturdays. So in between each one of the live class, you actually have either a drop-in session or a relaxed weekend where you have time to digest everything that has been covered during the training. So while you are learning in the instructor-led classes, you're actually working on practical projects. And before we move on to the next live class where you are working on a new project, you actually have some time to digest everything that you've learned. You have time to consume, the videos which I talked about, and then you have time to even practice on your own before we move on to a new concept or move on to a new project that we'll be working on in the live class. And all of these classes are happening on weekends, on Saturdays. So you have the flexibility to being a part of, as you have the flexibility of ensuring that you are able to make it to these sessions. Now, if you work on Saturdays and for any reason you might miss a particular session, right? If you're someone that works shifts, you can actually discuss with your work and see how You can adjust your worksheets. You can discuss with your supervisor, right? Because once you start the training, you have a detailed breakdown of when you have classes, when you do not have classes. So you can discuss with your supervisor and say, oh, hey, can I have these weekends to be my off days and these weekends to be days where I actually work? So you can make it to class and also work on weekends when you do not have a class. And if for any reason there's a clash or you're unable to make it to class, you can actually catch up with the recording of the session, right? All of the sessions are recorded. So you can actually just catch up with the recording, make sure that you're back on track and you're good to continue. And if there's any confusion or any question you'd like to ask, we have what we call the drop-in session. So if you miss a Saturday live class and you're watching the recording and then you get stuck somewhere and you have a question, you'd like to gain clarity, you can ask through our WhatsApp channel where you have direct access to your facilitator, which is the person training you. Or you could also ask during the drop-in session, which is a live session. Here you can share your screen, ask questions, interact with the facilitator, and get clarity on whatever the hiccup might be, right? So this gives you maximum flexibility while at the same time ensuring that you have depth of understanding, depth of knowledge, and have depth of support as you navigate this journey. Does this make sense to you, Shane?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, fantastic. Now, my question to you, right? We are concluding that now you'll be moving forward with the cybersecurity track. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Would you be enrolling for that right now? Or have you already enrolled?
No, I've not
Because I
done
believe.
it. I'm currently at work. I will enroll. I'll do
All
that
right then.
today.
All right then. So what I'll do is at the end of the session today, I'm going to be reaching out to every single person that has joined this session. All right. We can literally have a conversation. If you have any questions, you can go on to ask, and I'll be sure to clarify things for you. As of right now, if you have a question, just use the raise hand gesture, and I'll be coming around to respond to our questions. All right. All right, Ade, Shay, I'll be looking forward to having you in class. I'll be reaching out later on to just follow up on this. Ade
Can I ask a
Kumbi,
question, please?
yes, Olanki, I'm going to come to you in a quick moment, but let me
Okay.
quickly respond to Ade Kumbi. Hello, Ade Kumbi. I see your question. You said, please, would you also discuss the duration and time schedules of the training internship? Yes. So the training is for 6 months. The internship is for 2 months, right? The training 6 months, internship 2 months after your 6 months of training. So in total, that'll be 8 months. And I think you have an understanding of what the structure looks like now, how the flexibility works, right? You have classes happening on Saturdays and you can make it to the session or catch up with the recording. If you're going to miss a session, just let us know ahead. Oh, hi, Jed, I will not be able to join the class for XYZ reasons. So please, I'll be catching up with the recording of the session. Just simple and short. All right. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Adekunbi, or do you have a follow-up to that? Hi, Adekunbi. Does that answer your question? All right. All right. All right. So Olanki, I'll be coming to you in a moment. Let me just quickly take the questions in the chat and then we'll take you. Jimmy asked for cybersecurity, is there a test while studying? So our program is more practical than theoretical. So our own way of testing or gauging your understanding of what we've covered is by having you work on a capstone project for every module that you cover. So by the time you learn about one tool, you actually have a capstone project about that tool, rather than having you answer a bunch of theoretical questions that you can just ask ChatGPT for the answers, right? You actually have a practical project that you have to work on using those tools. And to achieve this, you actually apply, everything that you have learned, and you are practically working on these things on your own. And by the time you complete this project, you actually get feedback from the team. Oh, Jimmy, this is what you did well. This is what you didn't do so well. This is what you could have done better to make this project better. I hope that answers your question, Jimmy. All right, fantastic, fantastic. So MD, what does the teacher teach at the live class? Do you go through the live theory, lectures and labs? So total 24 live classes in 6 months, 3 hours session time. Okay, so yes, Waliu, that's I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I would stick to MD. All right, so yes, during the live class, you were working on projects. So what that means is 24 projects, because every single one of the live class that you're going through, you're actually working on projects. Now, besides this project you're working on in the live classes, 3 hours period of live classes, you actually have more projects in the Watch Me Do It videos. As you go through these bit-sized videos, you are learning the theoretical aspects, you are gaining some of this theoretical knowledge, and there are also practical projects you work on while going through these videos, right? So while you're having projects in the live classes, there are projects in the Watch Me Do It videos, and don't forget your capstone projects as well. So all of these, at the end, you most likely have more than those 24 projects in your portfolio if you actually complete every single one of the projects that you have packaged for you. Right? I hope that makes sense. While you right? Depending on the program you're taking, not all of the classes are going to be practical. For example, GRC is more compliance based, so you're not exactly working on like a home lab or a data pipeline. You are more or less working on actual documentations, compliance policies, understanding how they work, understanding the right kind of compliance policies to apply to specific situations and the likes of that. So everything, regardless, is practical. Everything is case study based. So you understand the practical implication in an actual work environment. I hope that answers your question, Emily. All right. So I think I'll take Olanki before I take on any more questions. Hi, Olanki.
Hello, good day, and thank you for your presentation. It was quite enlightening. I have a couple of questions, please. The first one of my kids is interested in joining one of the programs. Is the cost child friendly, and will it be able to accommodate their level of understanding during the lecture, or there will be additional one-on-one support for them, or it is strictly not meant for teenagers? The second question.
Okay.
The second question is about probably cybersecurity. So, for example, if I am interested in going into cybersecurity, cybersecurity have different aspects, and one needs to know which one needs to um, undertake, which is not specified in the course. It just says hacking and threats, but we know that cybersecurity is more than that. So, which one is it going, the cost or the module is going to undertake? And the last question is with AI. With
Okay.
most and some of these modules now, for anyone going into tech for the first time, will be interested in entry rules, and AI is practically wrecked entry rules for people that are going to start from the beginning. So I just want to ask, how are these modules or courses aligning with scaling those hurdles of beating AI to get the job, or that the courses are adjusted with AI to help scale in the job market?
Okay. So
Thank you.
yeah, I think I'll start with the last question. Generally, at analytics, we don't preach entry level roles generally, right? And this is very practical for us, right? What we do is make sure that whatever role you are getting into, we look at your previous experiences and tailor that to whatever role you are trying to get into. At the same time, you have a portfolio that showcases expertise in the field, expertise in the domain. So the implication of this is you are not starting from ground, you are not starting from zero. You're not applying to entry level roles. The way everything is packaged and the level of depth that the program covers gives you the opportunity to actually get into mid to even senior level roles, depending on how, how well you really expand on your learning journey. So we really do not focus on entry level roles, because aiming for higher roles gives you a lot more flexibility. At the same time, you get better pay. Plus you do not need to completely start from scratch. And that's exactly why we have the program structured the way it is. So we leverage your previously existing, experiences, and then we tailor that to the role that you're trying to get into. Does that make sense?
It does, but if my child, who is still a teenager and doesn't have vast experience, like someone that will have been in different career journey, how will he be able to scale any of the courses if he doesn't have those experiences?
That's where his portfolio comes.
He's actually 18 years old, so someone that is 18, 19.
Yeah, that's where his experience actually comes in. So I've had so far I think I've had actually two people around that age that have gone through the program with me. One was for data analytics, the other was for data science. The data analytics person, his older brother actually enrolled him for the program. He was in Nigeria, or sorry, the younger guy now. I think he was 18 years old. He was in Nigeria. His older brother was out of the country, enrolled him for data analytics. And after completing the training, he actually got a job with an international organization. So you can imagine an 18-year-old living in Nigeria, earning in foreign currency, actually working legal work as a tech expert, as a data analyst. Right. The second person, he was in the UK. His mom enrolled him for the data science program. I have personally spoken to both he and his mom. I've personally taken him through interview preparation sessions, and he's been able to secure a job. He was literally moving out of high school and taking the data science program. His mom enrolled him, and he was able to make the transition and secure a job. So there are very much opportunities for you regardless of your age. Trust me, I've had older people as well in my class, right? So age isn't really a factor, and generally would preach anywhere from 17, 18. Once you are mature enough, once you are an legal adult, you can actually take the program with us here at Analytics and make the transition. And like I mentioned, when recruiters want to hire, they are more concerned about skills and experience, right? So even if they do not have prior experience in the space, I, for one, got my very first role. It wasn't a full-time role anyway, just a part-time contract while I was still in the university. So at the time, I didn't have any certificates. At the time, I had not completed my degree. I was still in school, but I got a job and paid me really well. It paid me really, really, really well, right? For a student earning that amount, it paid me really well. So yes, there are opportunities, even if you do not have a prior certificate, even if you do not have prior work experience, if you really invest your time and effort into this and come up with, follow through, especially with the way analytics is structured, you are bound to, enjoy the benefits of it. I feel like in a way I've also answered the first question. Does this clarify things for you, Olanki?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think to give others to be able to ask questions, I'll send messages and we'll talk properly. Probably. Thank you very much for the answer.
All right, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to be reaching out to every single person, but please make sure you have filled the attendance form so I can have your details to reach out to you. All right. Please make sure you fill the attendance form so I have your details and I can reach out to you. Now, I think this question has come up a couple of times and in different ways and shapes and forms, right? I think I'll just go on to address it before I read through all the other questions. The cybersecurity program gives you multiple entry points into the cybersecurity space. So what you're going to be learning is not just a specialization in GRC. You'll be learning a specialization in GRC, yes. You'll be learning specialization in network security. You'll be learning penetration testing. You'll be learning SOC analytics. So these are the 4 core areas that you can actually delve into after completing your cybersecurity training with us at Tenalytics. We did this for two major reasons. Number one, you understand how the entire cybersecurity ecosystem works. You understand how the penetration tester collaborates with the network security experts within, the cybersecurity ecosystem. You understand how one person interacts with the other and how the entire system works. Also, you have the flexibility to specialize in any one of these roles. So at the end of your training, you can apply to GRC roles, you can apply to pen testing roles, you can apply to network security roles, you can apply to SOC analyst roles, because number one, you have the skills and you would have worked on projects in all of these different specializations during your training. At the end, you can decide, oh, I want to stick to GRC, and that's totally fine. So you can double down on that, go through your internship, build a career in GRC. You can decide, oh, I want to do SOC, double down on that, complete your internship, go on to build a career in that. But the training itself prepares you for all four roles: network security, SOC, penetration testing, and GRC. If this clarifies a question you had in mind, just give me a thumbs up. I feel like quite a number of us had this question in mind. So just give me a thumbs up if everything is clear to you now. All right, fantastic. So Adekumbi asks, for cybersecurity, would you delve into all areas or tailor to specifics? I think this answers the question for Adekumbi. MD says, is there any labs on specific module? This is for cybersecurity program. Yes. I think the response I just gave also answers that. You'll be learning across these four specializations, and you'll be working on projects for each one of the specializations. MD asks, what are the prerequisites to enter into cybersecurity program? I have a relative who is interested, but from agricultural background. That's interesting. So what I would say to that is, MD, I'm going to be reaching out to everyone at the end of this call. Just make sure you fill the attendance form. You can share the details of this relative, and then I can have a more personalized conversation with this person, so I understand where exactly they're coming from and can give you better recommendation. Right? I would need a bit more context to give you better recommendation to this person. All right. So I think we've come to the end of the questions that we have so far. I hope we had a wonderful time in the session today. I hope